Welcome to Who Yelling Now, Season 6, theme, Who Taught Us to Live Like This? This is Episode 3, titled Disappearing Community. Copyright Mackenzie. I am your host, Olga Foreign. Welcome in. Let me begin with something important. This episode is not a battle between virtual communities and physical ones. I benefit from online communities every single day. Without them, many of you listening right now would never have found this podcast. Some of my closest conversations happen with people who live thousands of miles away. That matters. But while we were celebrating everything we gained, I began wondering about something else. We all have the same 24 hours. If more of those hours are spent in one community, then fewer remains for another. This isn't criticism, it's arithmetic. So today, I want to ask a simple question. As we expand our communities across the globe, what happened to the one living on our street? Today isn't about deciding whether virtual communities are better than physical ones. Both have changed humanity in extraordinary ways. One allows us to speak across oceans. The other reminds us to speak across the street. I am not asking you to choose. I'm asking something different. As we expand one community, did we slowly stop investing in another? Today, we're exploring something that quietly changed around us. Something we rarely notice because it didn't disappear overnight. It happened. One invitation, one neighborhood, one conversation at a time. Technology has given us something humanity has never had before. The ability to build relationships globally. I don't want to lose that. But we all still have but 24 hours in a day. And as we spend more of those hours building, we forget what's just outside the front door. Not because one is better, because time is finite. So today, I'm not asking you to choose. I'm asking something simple. Did we slowly stop reaching across the street? Before we begin, I like to share a poem of mine. It's called Keeping the Faith. They told me my community had moved to a virtual space. So I stayed behind, keeping the faith. I still wave using my hands. I still smile, laugh, and cry using my face. I hand deliver invitations on paper. I still ask, would you like breakfast, lunch, dinner? One small request. Please leave the posting for later. Bring yourself. I am keeping the faith. keeping the faith that one day someone will knock instead of notify. Someone will visit instead of view. Someone will simply say, "I'm in the neighborhood." Keeping the faith that while our communities continue reaching around the world, they never forget to walk next door. Community is an interesting thing. You rarely notice it while you have it. When something feels different, you notice it. Let me tell you about Mama Annabelle. There was a woman in my neighborhood. Everyone simply called her Mama Annabelle. I don't remember anyone voting her into the position. No committee selected her. She never held an official title. She simply became the heart of the neighborhood. Some people collect stamps. Some people collect antiques. Mama Annabelle collected people. If you were new to the neighborhood, you didn't stay new for long. Within a day or two, there would be a knock at your door. Not a notification, not a text, a knock. She'd be standing there with something in her hands. Sometimes it was a pie, sometimes homemade bread, sometimes flowers from her garden, sometimes a casserole, because she figured you were too tired from moving to cook. She always seemed to know exactly what was needed without ever being told what it was. She never said, "Welcome to the neighborhood." She said, "Come on in. Let me introduce you to everyone." And she meant everyone. She knew the names of the children. She knew their parents. She knew whose father worked nights, whose mother had just lost her job, whose husband had recently passed. She knew who needed a little extra kindness, who without ever making them feel like a charity project. She knew birthdays, anniversaries, graduations. She knew who had chickens, who fixed bicycles, who could repair a leaky faucet, who made quilts, who played piano, who always had extra tomatoes from the garden. Community wasn't information to her. It was memory wrapped in love. You could walk beside her for 10 minutes and somehow meet 15 people. "Oh, you two haven't met. You like woodworking, huh? So does Frank. Come here, Frank." The introduction had already begun before you could object. Or she'd smile and say, "You know who would be perfect for you? Joanne. She lives 2 doors down. You both love gardening. Come on, I'll introduce you to her." And before you knew it, you had a new friend you hadn't gone looking for, but somehow already needed. If you mentioned apple mustard pie, her eyes would light up. "Oh, I make a pretty good one, but mine isn't as good as Miss Lucy's. Come on, let's see if Miss Lucy has any left." And somehow, you weren't just eating pie. You were becoming part of the neighborhood. That was Mama Annabelle's real recipe. She didn't bake community. She introduced it. Years passed. The neighborhood changed. Children grew up. families moved away, new families arrived. The houses became larger, the fences became taller, the garage doors open, then close again. People still lived next door, they just didn't always know each other anymore. Mama Annabelle changed too, not because she wanted to, because she had to. The invitations she once wrote by hand became emails. The neighborhood announcements became social media posts. The potlucks became catered. The baby blanket she would have knitted became online orders. Birthday gifts arrived in branded boxes instead of gift bags tied with ribbon at her kitchen table. She learned, not because she loved computers, because she loved people. Her son helped her. Mama, click here. Mama, this is how you create an event. Mama, you don't have to drive across town anymore. Just send them the link. He thought he was teaching her technology. She let him believe that. Because what she was actually doing every time he sat beside her at that screen was teaching him that the point was never the tool. The point was the person on the other side of it. She learned surprisingly well. She even laughed when someone showed her how to photograph her lunch. Well, she'd say, if everyone wants to see my soup, and she'd hold the bowl just right before taking the picture. She adapted. She found people across states, across countries. She celebrated birthdays online, welcomed new members into virtual groups, encouraged people she had never met. The tools changed. Her heart never did. Then, one afternoon, a moving truck appeared, 2 houses down. Mama Annabelle watched from her porch as strangers carried boxes into a house that had been empty for months. She turned to her son. When are we taking over the pie? He laughed, not unkindly. Mama, we don't really do that anymore. She looked at him for a long moment, not with judgment, not with disappointment, with genuine confusion. Then how will they know they already belong? Her son didn't have an answer. He's still looking for one. But every now and then she would become quiet. Not because she missed handwriting invitations, not because she preferred paper. She missed something else. She missed looking someone in the eyes when they said, I'll be there, Mama Annabelle. She missed hearing children laughing outside before the barbecues even started. She missed introductions that ended in hugs instead of usernames. She missed knocking on a front door just because she was passing by. One afternoon, she asked her son a quiet question. It wasn't about the computer. It wasn't about the internet. It wasn't even about technology. She asked, if everyone lives here now, pointing towards the screen, how do I make sure they still know the people who live right there? She pointed out the window. Across the street, next door, down the block. Her son taught her everything he could. She built an online community. It flourished. She welcomed people from countries she would never visit. She sent messages, organized virtual gatherings, celebrated birthdays for people who live 12 time zones away. She succeeded. And then one Saturday morning, she posts a simple message. No graphics, no event page, no hashtag, just this. The coffee is on. My door is open. Come if you'd like. One neighbor came, then another, then another. Not because the internet had failed them, but because the internet had finally introduced them to someone who was willing to open a real front door. Her question has stayed with me because Mama Annabelle never wanted to move people backwards. She wanted to carry community forward. She understood that humanity had discovered remarkably new ways to connect. She simply wondered if we could keep reaching across oceans without forgetting to cross the street. Maybe every generation has a Mama Annabelle. Or maybe some generations never get one. And if that's true, they won't know what they're missing. They'll never know what it feels like for someone to say, "Come with me. There's someone I want you to meet." Or, "You don't have to go through this alone." Or, "Miss Lucy's pie is better than mine. Let's go see if she has a slice left." Because those moments were never really about pie. They were about belonging. And perhaps that is what communities have always been. Not places where people simply lived, but places where someone made sure no one had to remain a stranger for very long. Here is a poem, my dearest listeners, I call publicly private. When you're with me, please be with me. No posting, no scrolling, no searching for someone else's life while mine sits across the table. I invited you, not your timeline. I wanted your laughter, your silence, your eyes, your interruptions, even your disagreement. Just you. If this moment isn't enough to hold your attention, perhaps I've become publicly private, visible enough to photograph, not present enough to remember. When you're with me, please be with me. For a little while, let me be enough. My wonderful loyal listeners, perhaps community doesn't disappear all at once. Perhaps it leaves one distracted conversation at a time. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Who Yelling Now? If today's conversation reminded you of a Mama Bell, give them a call, visit, or better yet, become one for someone else. Our communities won't be preserved by memories alone. They'll be preserved by people willing to create them, one conversation, one meal, one introduction at a time. Until then, I am Olga Foreign. Keep asking questions, keep observing, and perhaps one day and every day you too will keep the faith. Listen, subscribe, tell friends. See you in the next episode.